Hey everyone, welcome back to my channel. I hope you're all having a great day today. So in today's video, I decided that I was going to go through my eyeshadow palettes and basically share them with you guys, show you guys what I've got. I thought I'd start off with my high-end ones because I definitely have less high-end palettes than I do drugstore, because I just want to see how this video is going to do. But I find these videos quite interesting to watch myself. I like to know what people have because I'm nosy. So I thought I would share my palettes with you and show you guys what I've got. I'm going to be doing a couple swatches of the shades like in between and telling you what I think of the palette. And yeah, this video should just be a nice, easy, laid-back one. I'm all fresh-faced today. I just have a BB cream on because I don't really plan on going anywhere. I need to go to the shop later, so I thought, you know what, nice chilled-out video. That's what we're going to do today. So anyway, I'm going to stop rambling and let's jump straight on in to the video. Okay, so the first palette I'm going to share with you guys is my Me, Myself and Mama Mitchell palette with Beauty Bay. I really like this palette, but I have had a couple problems with it. A lot of the shades fell out of this palette when I brought it. Beauty Bay did refund me some of the money, but like, I don't know. I think I should have just sent the palette back and got another one because I'm sure this one is just dodgy. The actual eyeshadows themselves are beautiful and they work so well, but it's just such a shame because the palette itself is quite ruined, like I'm not gonna lie. But I really like this palette. The shades perform beautifully and I've never really had a problem with the actual shades. But would I purchase it again? Probably not, just purely because of the problems I've had with the palette itself. But the shades, I swear to you, are beautiful and they blend out beautifully. I just think I've got unlucky. But I suppose I do want to try some other Beauty Bay palettes and see how they perform and if I have any problems with those. But as of right now, I love this palette. It's just a shame as to what I've had to deal with this palette. Also, I wasn't sure which category to put this in. I didn't know whether to put it in high-end or drugstore because I think this palette is about £30, and to me £30 is quite a lot of money for an eyeshadow palette. However, you do get a lot of shades, so it was a little bit like hit or miss where I was going to place this palette, but I've put it in a high-end one for now. So I just swatched a couple of the shades for you just to give you guys a feel for the palette. The swatches themselves will speak volumes for the palette. Like, the palette honestly is stunning and is so pigmented. And would I recommend the palette? Yes, but I just don't know how well the pans are fitted in the palette. That's the only problem I have with it. So I find it kind of hard to speak about it because I actually really like the shadows, but the actual palette like design I think has a couple flaws. That's the only problem I have with it. Okay, so the next palettes that I want to share with you guys are my Anastasia Beverly Hills palette. So I have the Norvina palette and I have the Modern Renaissance palette. I love both of these palettes. I use them so much, but you really don't need to use like a lot of the actual shadow. So the actual eyeshadows last me ages, even though I've used them like so much. I also love the little brushes that you get with these palettes. They're really good as well. The pigmentation of these eyeshadows are insane. If you have not tried an Anastasia palette, I guarantee you will not be disappointed. You need one of them in your life. I really want to go and buy the Soft Glam palette. That's the one that I would like to purchase next. But even the packaging of these, they just feel so luxurious, and honestly, I love these palettes and I've never had a problem with them. So I'm going to quickly go ahead and swatch the Norvina palette first, and then I'm going to swatch the Modern Renaissance palette second. So I really like the Norvina palette. There's a good mixture of mattes and shimmers. You can do so many looks with this palette, and it's definitely, you could have this as an everyday palette easy because it has your everyday shades in there, but it also has a nice variety of like pops of colour, which I really appreciate because I don't always like to go for everyday looks. Like, I'm the kind of person where if I'm gonna wear makeup, I'm gonna go all out. So my necessary like everyday look isn't necessarily what you would class as an everyday look. So I like to have a palette that can do both, and I feel like this palette definitely does that. The mattes in the Anastasia palettes are amazing, they always have been, but I definitely feel like the shimmers in the Norvina palette are amazing. I love them. The Modern Renaissance palette is definitely more of your everyday look palette. You could definitely turn these look into something a little bit more out there, but it's definitely a very safe palette. I would definitely recommend this one to like beginners in makeup. It's so easy to like use. Basically the colours do everything for you, as most Anastasia palettes do, to be fair. But this palette is definitely just a very easy, like beginner friendly palette. I love this palette. I've had it for a while and I just never have a bad word to say about it. So next up, I wanted to talk about my Morphe palettes. Now, I truthfully used to really want Morphe palettes like when they were a craze, but now, like, I honestly, these palettes, I have 3 of them. I have the James Charles palette, I have the Jaclyn Hill Volume 1 palette, and I also just have the Morphe 35O palette, and I just never reach for these palettes. I hardly ever use them, but I don't know, like, I feel like, how much are these palettes? Like, sometimes I think they're about £30 a go. I don't know, like, they're just so, I don't know, like, they don't perform amazing like a high-end eyeshadow, but I know that they're not expensive, if that makes any kind of sense. Like, they're not high-end, like, they're not an expensive high-end, but they're more expensive than like a drugstore palette, and I feel like these perform exactly the same as like a drugstore palette. So I don't know, I think I would sooner just pay a little extra money and get the like higher end palettes now, or I'd sooner pay a lot less money and just buy a drugstore palette. So the 35O palette I have had a lot of use out of. It doesn't necessarily look like it, but I have used it a lot, and a lot of the shades, like, they're just so similar, like they all look the same, and I just don't reach for it anymore. I just don't reach for this palette anymore. So as you can see from the swatches, they swatch really nicely, but as I remember, like on your eyes, it actually takes a lot to build these shades up. Like, you do have to go in a couple times, and if I'm gonna spend a little bit more money on a palette, like, I want them to just work. Like, I want to just be able to chuck the shades on and like it not be like difficult to like build up and stuff like that. I just remember them going on like a little bit patchy. You have to blend them quite a lot, and I just don't have time for that with like a more higher end palette. I know that Morphe palettes aren't necessarily expensive, but I know that I can get drugstore palettes a lot cheaper that just work better, which I feel like you might as well just buy a cheaper palette. If it's going to work better, you just might as well. So the Jaclyn Hill Morphe palette, this is her first palette, not the new one, because I don't particularly want to buy the new one, if I'm being honest. I have the same problem with this palette. Like, a lot of the shades, like, the shades are stunning, and if I'm honest, I actually prefer the formula of this palette to the normal Morphe palettes, but it's just a safe palette. Like, it's just everyday, and all of the shades to me just look the same. Like, this up here, all the shades are almost the same. Here, almost all the shades are the same. These all look the same to me. These shimmers both look the same. These, like, they just all look so similar. Like, I could have just got a smaller palette that had all these shades in, do you know what I mean? And then there's only really this corner with like a pop of colour, and that's it. Like I don't know, I just never reach for this palette. Like, it's not a bad palette, it's very beginner friendly, but it's just not a palette that I reach for. One thing I must admit though with the Jaclyn Hill palette is that the black shade is amazing, I must admit. Okay, and then my final Morphe palette is the James Charles palette, and do you know what? You can call James Charles as much as you like, but this man knows how to make a palette. I feel like this palette is so well done. I can't open it. I do feel like this palette is so well done. Like, there are a few similar shades in here, I'm not gonna lie, but it's got your everyday shades, like the top row, including these bigger shades here. The top rows are definitely more of your like everyday stuff, but then obviously if you do want to experiment and play around with makeup, you have got the bottom shades. I have used this palette like a fair bit, I'm not gonna lie, but it was only really when I first got it. I haven't really used it since. But if I'm gonna be honest, if there's any palette that I'm gonna pull out of my Morphe palettes, it will more than likely be this one or the Jaclyn Hill one, to be fair. But yeah, I actually don't really mind this palette. I feel like the pigments aren't great. You do have to definitely use them with a wet base because they just work so much better. But I honestly don't think that this palette is that bad. I don't reach for it a lot, but if I do want to play around with some colour, I will reach for this palette. This one or my Beauty Bay palette with Mitchell. Those two are my favourite like colourful palettes. I honestly feel like I need to pick that palette up more because it is stunning. Like, it is a really nice palette. I don't know, like, do you know what it is? It's just so big. Like, it's right at the bottom of my drawer all the time because it's the only place where it fits. And I have other palettes like piled up on top of it, and I just never think to pull that palette out. But to be honest with you, it is a really nice palette, and to be fair, the black in the palette is beautiful. Like, I feel like that's when you can tell like how good a palette is by how good their black shade is. But yeah, I definitely do need to use that palette a little bit more because it's not the worst palette in the world, but by no means is it the best either. I do feel like the colour story of it though, he got spot on. Like, it's just so, it's a perfect palette. If you just want one palette that has everything that you would ever need, then that is definitely a palette that I would recommend buying. Okay, so the next palette that I wanted to show you is the Naked Heat Urban Decay palette. I used to love this palette and I used to use it a lot, although to be fair, honestly it doesn't look like it, but I honestly used to use this palette so much. I used to love it. The eyeshadows perform really well. I really like the eyeshadows in this palette. It's got a really nice long mirror. It feels quite heavy, sort of, and the only thing I don't like is how, like, I don't know, the packaging is just kind of a little bit, I don't know, like, I feel like if I was to travel with this could very easily like chip and stuff. But to be fair, the palette is really nice. It's definitely more of like an everyday palette. It would be very easy to do like a brown smoky eye with this, an everyday kind of just all over the lid kind of look. The only thing I don't like about this is how dark the shades are. Like, there's not very many light shades in this palette, and I feel like even the shimmers are quite dark, so you can't even brighten it up with like a light shimmer, which is what I usually like to do. That's the only downside I have with this palette. But honestly, the shades are stunning and I definitely would recommend this palette. And as you can see by the swatches, the mattes are beautiful, the shimmers are stunning. It's definitely a very nice palette. I have got so much eyeshadow on me right now. I'm scared I'm gonna get it on my white jeans. I don't feel like wearing white jeans was a good idea. Okay, and I saved these palettes until the end because they're definitely my favourite two palettes. So I have got my two Jeffree Star palettes here. I love the Jeffree Star formula. I honestly, these eyeshadows are amazing. This palette is one of my favourite all-time like palettes. It's my go-to. I reach for it all the time. It's so bougie. Like, look at the packaging. Like, honestly, it's stunning. I love how it has clasps. I feel like I do not have another palette like this, and I definitely feel very luxurious when I pull it out. The mirror is amazing. Like, I could do my whole face in that mirror easy, and honestly, I just love this palette so much. The Blood Sugar palette is my favourite. I honestly feel like swatches don't even do that palette justice. Like, you can see that the shimmers are beautiful and the mattes are like amazing too, but honestly, I have never used a more buttery, like, just easy to blend eyeshadow palette in my life. It's literally my go-to for like anything. If I've got a party to go to, if I need to just whack one shade all over the lid and go, like I don't have a lot of time to get ready. Literally, it's such a good palette. You can have it as like an everyday palette. You can definitely do some more out there looks with this palette as well. Honestly, such a stunning palette, and I'm so glad that I have it. And then my final palette is the Jawbreaker palette. I have kept the packaging just because it's like different to the actual palette, if that makes sense, so I've kept the packaging. I like this palette because it's a lot more simple. Like, it feels heavy, like, even though it's kind of like the same concept as this palette, it feels heavy, like it feels expensive. I really like the packaging, and the shades in here are beautiful, like pastel shades. If you want some pastel shades, this palette, honestly, this palette is amazing. I've used it a lot. Honestly, ever since I got Blood Sugar, I've not used this palette as much, but I definitely am still glad I have this palette, and I do still really, really love this palette. The shimmers in here are so buttery. The mattes blend out so easily. Like honestly, Jeffree Star eyeshadows are spot on. Oh, and the mirror in here, beautiful as well. Let me put that back in the box. I think I'm definitely gonna have to redo my tan later today. Okay, so we have some stainage on the arm, so I'm gonna have to go and probably wash my arm properly. I think that just goes to show how pigmented that eyeshadow palette is. So that is all of my high-end palettes. Like I said, I don't have a lot, but I feel like I definitely have enough, where if I want to use something a little bit more high-end, then I definitely have them. I just wanted to share this with you. I really like watching videos like this, so hopefully you found it entertaining. I hope everyone is staying safe and staying inside. Honestly, we'll look back at this in a year's time and just remember how crazy this time was, but hopefully you all are staying safe inside. Let me know if we have any of the same high-end palettes. Let me know what your favourite high-end palette is. I definitely like having high-end palettes just to make myself feel a little bit more luxurious when I am doing my makeup, and I definitely feel like eyeshadow palettes are the best high-end product to have. I really hope that you guys enjoyed this video. Thank you guys so much for joining me until the end. If you did enjoy, please don't forget to leave me a like and a comment to let me know that you did enjoy. And maybe, just maybe, if you want to see a little bit more of me, then don't forget to subscribe before you leave, because I would love to have you here. But like I said, thank you guys so much for joining me today, and I shall see you guys in the next one. Bye guys!